Are you struggling to create an intentional headspace? Unable to connect deeper with yourself? Come, and together, let's address the elephant in the room. I'm your host, Sinead Roche, and this is the Uncomfortable Podcast. So today I'm going to talk about a societal taboo that I'm not necessarily supposed to talk about. I'm not even going to say that I'm qualified to talk about it, but moreover, I would like to talk about the emotions that are, I guess, the emotions that are tied to like this thing. This thing being money. Today I'm going to talk about money. I'm not here to financially advise you guys, not qualified for it. I have a business minor with my bachelor's, but please relax, okay? I took accounting and finance in my first year. I passed, okay? That's all that matters. But anyways, yeah, I'm not here to financially advise anyone. I'm here just to talk about like the emotions behind it, especially like the negative emotions that go with it and that might be like the reasons why you are A, scared of money, or B, have like negative habits with money. And today I really want to talk about, not talk about, but I want to talk to women specifically, just because like another reason why women specifically might be more scared to address finances or address money is because of societal roles that have been placed onto this. And by societal roles, I mean gender roles. I think even from my own personal experience in the past, like it's always seemed that men are the ones who are, I guess, more knowledgeable or more capable of dealing with finances and money when that is not the case. In fact, like there are statistics on the fact that when women do invest, even though women tend to invest less, women actually do better. And so yeah, it's not just like a men's playing field. And although it's very scary to address this topic and scary to actually confront sometimes like the emotions that go behind some of your negative habits, finance is always going to be a part of your life. Like it's so unfortunate because like I really don't want to have to budget the rest of my life or like track where my money is going, because I feel like it's such a to a degree it's like such a small task, but at the same time, like yeah, how you spend your money, like where that's going towards, it does determine what opportunities you're able to afford. It also shows you like how disciplined are you as a person. Like your money habits, they're tied, like I said, a lot to your emotions, and with that said, also to your discipline and your ability to have that. And sometimes it's very hard to confront that as a person. Um, because especially if you have bad ones like overspending or impulse buying, then it's not necessarily something that you want to look in the eye when you're looking at your Excel sheet or like your Google sheet, and you're like, oh, so that's why I don't have enough money for whatever expense I also want to pay for. And I'm gonna talk about it from like my own personal experience. Like I'm not someone who I would say is very money smart. Um, I think that's in part because like in the past I've used to just like I was like, it's fine. As long as there's this amount like in my account, like it's okay. Like I don't really need to track where the rest is going to. But recently, so like last year I moved off of campus, and first semester I was like, okay, like it's fine. My money habits seem fine. My money habits were not good. Like I realized if something looked cute, I would buy it. Like I hate when I see miniature figures of something and I'm like, I like this shit. This shit would look good like sitting on my counter or something like that. Um, yeah, and so second semester, like even though like I really did not want to deal with that and I did not want to be constricted by my money, I started to budget and I started to learn how to do that. Even though in the past I've actually taken many personal finance courses, I just never really wanted to apply it to myself. Like I think sometimes I'm actually like a person who's like in theory is as long as I know it in theory, like it'll be fine applying it. But then I really rarely get the chance to apply, or rarely do I really want to apply what I've learned sometimes with my theory, like theoretical knowledge. Like, do I actually want to apply that to what's actually going on in my life sometimes, especially when it is personal and money is personal. Money is personal. The relationship that I have with money is personal. Like, it's determining my lifestyle. Like, it's also showing you my habits. Like, it's personal, and sometimes I just I don't know. I put it off. I definitely put it off. But yeah, so I've had bad spending habits in the past. And sometimes like when I've spent, like overspent, like my imaginary budget that I had in my head at the time, like I used to feel really guilty afterwards because I'm like, oh shit, like I actually shouldn't have done that, and I used to regret like the fact like that the money went there rather than somewhere else. And like other emotions I would also like, I would feel like after having spent money, um was the fact that like I would honestly be scared sometimes that I wouldn't have enough money for the next month. um yeah, because like I didn't have my finances like in view, and this in part like is a scarcity mindset, like where I believe that like money is a limited resource. And at the time, I mean, like if I only have such and such amount, like obviously it's going to become a limited resource, but it is what it is, you know. And other emotions that could also impact like your habits with this like would include like stress. Like if you're stressed out and a coping mechanism of yours is like overspending and buying little things, then yeah, you're also going to be using, and you get stressed out a lot potentially, then yeah, you're going to be using your money a lot, and you're going to be spending it on various items that potentially like you actually did not need or you could not actually afford. um so that's why, you know, it's actually time to focus on your emotions when it comes to money. And sometimes it's not even our emotions that like we now have developed towards it, or sometimes like not our habits that we developed toward it that really affect us, but 100% also like how we saw like our caretakers or our parents, how like they used money. Like if your parents are doing it in a smart way, smart quote unquote way, then potentially like you're gonna be more likely to have also smarter ways of dealing with money. Now that's not every single case, but you're seeing something observationally, you're learning through that, like you're gonna be like, oh, like, you know, we do actually have food at home. We're fine. We don't need to spend this extra money on something else, you know? Versus people who have been in situations where like they've kind of like they've seen their parents like overspend to the point where it's like they don't have like enough money to like have food on the table, for instance. Then in the future, then this person potentially can be like, they can be suffering from like a scarcity mindset, and also potentially from like not obsessive earning, but necessarily like money hoarding and obsessive saving in a sense, because like they're very risk averse, they don't want to give out their money too often. And although that means you have potentially more money in the bank than other people, that's still a negative relationship with money. And it's still viewing money as a limited resource. And obviously, this is very context dependent and very dependent on the situation that you are in. Like what I'm saying right now, it's the general overview. If I'm talking to a specific person with um, specific childhood and seeing like what their parents did throughout that, like how they've seen money being handled in the past, like that's the, I guess, the feelings that you have afterwards, and just overall like every situation is different. But that's just very normal, you know. And so yeah, you could also like in those cases where like you've seen like your parents like have struggled with money, like you could also be money smart, like actually money smart now at this point, because you've taken the time, because we've seen how this has been an issue for you guys in the past. But again, that's different from person to person. And I think another big part of like when you look at, okay, like why do I have negative spending habits, like maybe it's not emotions, right? But or maybe it's not like your past childhood and like seeing how money has been dealt with, but maybe it's also the community that you're around and like the circle of people that you're around. So for instance, if right now like I'm a college student, you know, many of us are broke. um but if you're in an environment, right, where every single time you say you're broke or anything like this, and it's constantly validated, like by other people, then it's not someone coming up to you and being like, okay, like, do you want to fix this? It's something we should talk about. Like, do you feel like, and I know money's a personal thing, so we wouldn't really want people to step into our business like that. But if someone cares, like, you would hope that they would also try to address this problem. Um, but yeah, if you're in that type of environment where people are like, when you're saying like I'm broke, like everyone's just laughing with it, and no one's really like, I guess, asking you about it, or no one's saying, okay, like maybe you want to fix that or something, then you're not really going to be encouraged to fix your habits either way. Versus if you're in an environment where like people are talking about it, right? And I know it's also taboo to talk about it. I think the only person I ever actually talk about money with is one of my roommates because she's very transparent about it. I'm very grateful for that because I didn't usually want to talk about money because I'm like, obviously sometimes people earn more, people earn less. And that also plays in a part, like, and also I think just culturally, also another aspect that plays into it, like, as if, do I want to talk about this or not talk about this? But if you are, going back to my other example, like if you are in an environment where people are like, yeah, no, like, actually I'll be able to cover this, or no, it's okay, like you get it next time, or like it's kind of showing in that way. Okay, obviously dependent on their jobs and stuff like this, but it is kind of showing in that way, like, oh, okay, money is actually an abundant resource. I'm gonna have, like, I want to have enough that, like, I'm able to, one time say like, hey, I'll cover the check or something like this. And I'm not saying right now I'm in that part of my life where like all my friends are at that stage, or like where I'm even at that stage. But it's just being in that place where it's not a thing of like constant panic when it comes to the topic of money. Like, even when it comes to, like, I live with two other people, like, and even when it comes to like talking about like rent or something like this, or bills, like we genuinely like do like say like, okay, like, don't worry, like I'll cover like this part, or like I'll send, like, it's okay, like it's not a panic, and I don't, like, something that's very important to me, like, because finance are going to be a huge part of my life, like forever, and even after I die, like the will, like, I don't want to be panicked with it. I don't want to have that. I don't want to be scared of it anymore. And, beyond just personal finance and learning how to budget, I also do want to start to tackle like investments. And actually, I have, like, with some friends, like we talked about it, and I even use an app called Female Invest, where it teaches you kind of, okay, the basics of things. And because I know, like, I need to learn this, and I know that this is important for my future, like, and the fact that I'm scared of this right now, like, cannot be guiding my future with money. It cannot be guiding my relationship with money. So let's talk about how we can overcome these things, right? And first and foremost, it's very important. We sometimes don't want to address the emotion behind it. We don't want to address the emotion, like, in this relationship that we have with money. But let's, like, at least start to figure out where our money is going. Like, let's start to, we don't have to mentally understand it right now, like how we spend, but let's just at least see where it's going. Let's be able to track our money, like monitor it, at least for like a month. Like, it doesn't mean you have to adjust anything, but just be very conscious of, like, okay, I'm actually spending for this and that. Because at that point, you're going to be able to see, like, where your money is actually going to. And you might understand why, oh, actually, like, I don't have, like, this might be the reason why I don't have enough money to pay for this expense that I actually want to do in the future, like for this opportunity or experience, in the future. Then another way of getting over this would be taking personal finance courses, and just learning to educate yourself. I'm not going to say that educating yourself about personal finance or just finances in general is going to eradicate the emotions that you have behind it. It's not going to eradicate the fear of it, but you're going to understand it more. You're going to just, have a conversation with it. And before we say, not everyone has access to personal finance courses, maybe not in person, but there's so much right now on the internet. Like, again, I've said this in another episode before, like, we're living in a digital era. Like, you can learn what, like, compounding, like, interest is, like, just by searching it online. Like, just take those small steps. Like, because I feel like a huge part of also being scared of finance and being scared of money in general is that we don't understand the jargon of it. And it seems so daunting that, like, only finance pros are going to understand it. Don't let that fear control it. Educate yourself on it. Take the small steps, plan, like, once a week to just learn, like, a new terminology that you would use just in regular day-to-day budgeting, to just calm yourself down and be like, oh, okay, next time I see this, I actually understand what this means. Another thing that I would suggest, if you are in the right circles, but, like, if you are around people who are open and transparent, speak to other people. Like, I was talking to the same roommate before, right? And we talked about, like, also, like, our shopping habits and, like, our spending habits, and just having those, like, open and transparent conversations with her has helped me understand, like, oh shit, bro, like, this is something that I actually need to get in control of. And also, like, it helped me to confront myself with it, and it just felt kind of nice also because you start to realize, like, it's not just you. like in most cases with many issues, like yeah, everyone is different, but it's not just you. Like if it's not one thing, it's gonna be another thing they probably have an issue with. Like, and I'm not saying be happy for the fact that people have issues, but like in this scenario, I was like, oh my gosh, same bro. Like I don't know how to get it under control, right? And it became a thing that like, we were talking, and I realized recently she got something from Lululemon, and I love Lululemon. Um, and I was like, okay, why didn't you ask me for yeah, why didn't you ask me like if I wanted something like to also order something? And she's like, bro, I'm helping you save. And you know she was saying it as a joke to me, but honestly, like I'm so glad that she did not say anything to me because I know I would have spent money on that. Like so I don't know. If you have the opportunity to have those types of conversations with people and you're around people who feel comfortable enough to talk about this with you and you feel comfortable enough as well, that would also be another way to overcome it because it's kind of like shit, man, we have shared mindsets on this or like shared bad habits, which I'm not saying encourage yourselves afterwards. It's just like, okay, confronting this with like another person as well. Okay, and then lastly, I would say make sure also to forgive yourselves for the past mistakes, for like you've made errors in this relationship that you have with money, because you also have to know that, and this is maybe where you start to confront those emotions that you had. But it's kind of like saying like, hey, oh shit, like bank account, I'm so sorry. Like I know this sounds silly, but like bank account, I'm actually sorry for the fact that like we don't have enough money in there right now, because like at one point I know the fact that I was stressed out led me to overspend, and even though it was okay for me to feel stressed out, like it was not necessarily beneficial towards me to react in the way with my debit card or something like this. I know that sounds silly, but it'll also help you to kind of like see which emotions and like what reasons are the reason why like you are actually draining your bank account, or also like the opposite. Sometimes like it could be like, oh, like sometimes you'll go back and you realize I wish I actually did spend money on this certain experience or whatever, and it's kind of also apologizing like, oh, okay, like I was hoarding, like over hoarding like money because I was just scared like there wasn't gonna be enough at one point, but then I realized, you know, especially if you have like a steady job, like next month something else will come. But again, that's dependent from person to person, but overall, just make sure that you're also forgiving yourselves for your past mistakes on the matter. Um, because, you know, you can change the nature of this relationship the way you can change the nature of many of your relationships as well. And then, okay, I said lastly for that one. But the way I would start to approach then having these conversations like about money is to I've been talking about money in a relationship way. And so I would also say start to romanticize talking about money. Now, this doesn't have to be with like another person. If you are in a relationship, perhaps that would be a great thing, especially if you want a long-term future there. Um, but I'm talking about like romanticizing that discussion with money with yourself, even. And this means setting like money dates. So specific like times during the week, maybe like once or twice a month or something, like just start slow so it's not too much pressure. Where you really sit down with yourself for like 30 minutes and like you ask yourself, okay, like how have we been doing recently? It's kind of like a little checkup, a little debrief. I personally, like all my friends know I love debriefing. And I love doing like kind of like little check-ins, like okay, like how are we doing? So it's kind of just making the time for it and really sitting yourself down and being like, okay, this is in the part, like we're gonna make this nice, you know. For me, what I do is I take out my Google sheet because that's where I do my budget on, and almost like every other Friday I'll put like I first of all I always carry like all the receipts that I have from like when I'm spending stuff, and I when I'm spending stuff when I'm spending money, and I make sure I sit down, you know, make a nice cup of tea. I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, so I spent here and here, and I was like, oh shit, you know, it's not really nice like sometimes to see where I'm spending my money, even though like I don't regret it in some cases, um, but it's kind of just like I don't know, having a nice atmosphere around it so that it's not so pressuring and so daunting to look at the fact that like that's where my money went, right? And it's also like allowing you like a time to just be like honest and open with it, um, honest and open with yourself about like why did you spend at that point, or what maybe did hold you back from spending where you think like shit maybe I should have. It's just allowing yourself to have like designated time for it, and I think that's really important because again, this is a relationship with money that you're establishing. You're establishing like, I guess also confidence, more confidence in the fact that like you'll be able to understand finances, but also more confidence in the fact that you'll be able to understand the emotions that lead you to certain habits when it comes to your money as well. And through that, perhaps then you'll maybe start to realize, okay, like when should I be holding myself back, and what times are those happening the most, where I'm like, shit, I want to spend so much, but like if you've become more aware of it and more conscious, then you're like, oh, but wait, this motion it's just temporary, so it will also pass like at one point, so let me not like actually act on it. And then lastly, within these money dates, if you're starting to realize like, oh shit, like I actually have a lot of issues with this, seek help with this. Like I said, like you could always go like online and do like educate yourself and do research, but also seek professional help if that is an option for you. And I don't just mean like therapy in a sense, because that could also be the reason, but I also mean like financial counselors. But again, I'm not a financial advisor, so please don't ask me anything, and please don't come for me if you do any of these things. Sorry. But yeah, like I said, money is a big topic that will forever impact our lives, and our emotions will forever impact us. But just because we feel certain things does not mean we should be acting on those feelings all the time, and especially not when it comes to a very quintessential part of life. And so the question I want you guys to ask yourself, to just see where you're at, because maybe at the end of this episode you actually did say like, I don't fucking need this, like I didn't need to hear this today, like that's fine, but ask yourself, when was the last time you realistically discussed money? And this can be with yourself, could be with your partner, could be with your friends, could be with a financial advisor, or anything. Like, when was the last time you sat down and you checked like on your finances, like, and where your money was going? Because sometimes we have like this thing of like, oh, we're actually fine, but not this thing, but like you start thinking that like, if this doesn't really apply to me, but actually sit down and ask yourself like, when was the last time I sat down and I knew like I was going to be okay for the future, or I planned a bit more in advance for the future, or when was the last time in general that I don't know, like I wasn't panicked to think about money. Because even just like if I'm saying money and like the first thing that comes to my mind is like, oh, you're just like panicked, or like you're just tense already, like that's already a bad sign in some sense, that like you don't have a better or the best type of grip on your finances. So just ask yourself, when was the last time you really discussed money with yourself? Remember, don't judge yourself too much with it, because then it's going to be harder. And I know going through these uncomfortable processes, it's uncomfortable and it's strange and it's unfamiliar, and that's the point. So just ease your way into it and ask yourself, okay, when was the last time you realistically discussed money? Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.